I listened to your interview with the guy from Prague.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And there were like these long silences.
His name's Han.
Han.
Han Kalina.
And there'd be these long pauses. And
Yeah.
I'm like, if I was on the phone with you, that's what I would sound like most of the time because I'm so visual that I'm picking up on cues that if I can't see,
I get that.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Man, I just did
It's like being underwater.
I did a 2.5 hour podcast yesterday over the phone with my friend in New York. And the day before that, I did a 2-hour podcast with somebody here in Austin, but over the phone. And then the day before that, I did a 90-minute podcast with a friend from Mexico. And
I listened to that one too.
Did you?
Yeah.
That one's really special to me.
He's the guy who started to work out.
Yes. Yeah, that one's really special to me.
Yeah. How come? Because you haven't seen him in 10 years.
I haven't seen him in 10 years. He was like my first best friend. I grew up, I didn't have friends, you know? Like right now, before my daughter went to school, we have a neighbor that she goes to school with. And she's like, can I go to her house? And I'm like, you have to be invited. And, I tell her, go to school and tell her dad to ask me if you can come over there or if she can come over here. She's welcome here anytime. You can invite her, but you can't just show up, right? and she has such a, I want to play. And that was me too, except nobody wanted to play with me, you know?
Why?
So I grew up in a predominantly Latino, Chicano, Hispanic, Mexican-American culture, a lot of brown faces.
Where? Oh yeah, in the valley.
In South Texas. And this little butthole in South Texas called Donna, Texas. And before Google Maps, you couldn't find it on a map. And I didn't speak, like English is the second language over there. And I didn't speak Spanish like really well, but I understood it. And so just bullies, kids that were like, you look different than me, which is so weird since the color peach, as Fiona says, I'm peach colored.
That's what Alex used to tell me when
really?
she was little.
That's so cute.
Mommy, you're peach. What shade is that person?
Oh,
is
really?
What she would say. Not what color, but what shade of brown.
Oh, I like that.
Everybody's a shade of brown.
Yeah.
On some level.
Some people just have more milk in their coffee.
Right, that's right.
Like me. And so just growing up, I'm not going to say it's because I was light complected, but I think it had something to do with it. Like I was the black sheep of my family because I didn't speak Spanish, even though, like I said, English is everybody's second language. And it just didn't, I don't know, I just wasn't cool enough. I just had too much milk in the coffee, I think. And also I was that kid. I mean, I grew up thinking I was an alien from outer space. Like I convinced myself that I was, if there was a cockroach or a frog in class, I'd be like, I'll get it. And I'd put it in a jar and people are like, this guy's a freak,
Aww.
just like Stephen King Stand By Me shit, just normal childhood thing. I developed, I'm sure, a lot of complexes, but like a lot of, character traits as well. Like, I think I'm not one of those helicopter parents that's like, you shouldn't bully your kids. Like, I think there's this healthy amount of, it's got to do something to your immune system, to go through a little bit of hazing, like here and there, I'm
from
not
your own parent.
No, of course not. But from school, girls used to pick on me.
I didn't know who was bullying who in that scenario.
Well,
okay.
Girls used to pick on me quite a bit. And I remember this one girl, her name's Jolynn. I think she got pregnant like in 8th grade. But it was my 8th grade, but I think it was like her 3rd 8th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget her, man. Like she put a maxi pad on my back, and I remember just being like humiliated. And when you're a kid, that's like, thank God this was before social media because that probably could have went viral or something. But like, I remember just like plotting revenge against her. But all I had to do was just go to 9th grade and I never saw her again.
There you go.
She
stayed in 8th grade for
another
so. year.
And I've tried to like Facebook her just to be like, fuck you. But I don't know. I don't know what happened to her.
Yeah.
Fuck her.
Yeah.
She's a bully, man. Like I used to get like hardcore anxiety. Like, I didn't want to go down the hallway because, what if she's there? She's going to try to throw something at me. And you can't hit a girl. Even though my mom would tell me, it's cool. You should just punch her in the face and she'll stop. Ma, I can't do it. I can't do it. But yeah.
So this was one of your first friends.
Serge was one of my first friends ever. Okay. Sedhill, Serge. And I used to live in a trailer park and nobody there wanted to hang out with me. But then my mom built a house in the middle of town next to like the fire department and the police department, just in basically the Donna Town Square. And so it was very accessible. And if you wanted to go to the local HEB, like you kind of had to be in my area. And so Serge lived in that area. And then it was like we'd walk home from school together and we just became friends and we got so close. But he wasn't an American citizen, you know, like so after high school, he had to go back to Mexico, which was like a bummer. It was really sad. So he came back in 2009 and hung out for maybe another 2 years, but then had to go back.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it wasn't legal to stay in America forever. And it's only been more strict since then, obviously.
Clearly.
Oh, of course. I mean, you would know. But so, yeah, I mean, he's probably listening to this right now, and shout out to Serge. I love him dearly. Dearly, I'd do anything for that guy. And he taught me the value of friendship. Big time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So without further ado, this is the podcast. This is what it is. I like the way you segued it. You're going to have to introduce yourself because your last name's very unique. And I don't want to butcher it. And trust me, I have a silent K in my name, so I know how it is.
Right.
I'm here with Erika. Erika, can you tell me your full name, please?
Yes, it's Erika Marcoux.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we met at a podcast kind of networking event last weekend, and I saw you from across the room, and I was just like, this chick's for real. I can tell, you know. And the question,
how could you tell?
The questions you were asking, you know, there were some people, no disrespect to anybody, because we all start off in the same place, but there were some people that were very green. And I could tell, I didn't know your name yet, but I was like, she's asking questions that are already, she's like on third base, you know, I could tell. And
which I think is funny because I just launched my show in September.
And what's the name of your show?
It's Your Truth Revealed.
And what's it about?
So it's about really where health and mental health come together. And in my opinion, there is no separation between your overall health and how happy or balanced you feel. And my big objective is to share with people as much as I can all this really cool information that's out there that we didn't even know 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, there's just so much more information really about how to be happy. And I mean from the level of biochemistry.
Is happiness sustainable?
That's it. Well, so there's different ways to look at it, right?
Yeah.
You can look at the physical, and then you can also look at it from a philosophical perspective. And with the clients that I work with, I hope that I impart to them more knowledge about both, because I think it's a balance of everything, right? You can't really, I mean, we can dive into one field or the other, but really it's how does that all come together, and is it balanced in the best way that it can be?
Yeah, there's so many factors. I mean, when it comes to happiness, there's, I guess, job security, there's physical health, there's how you move, right? Your physiology. I mean, you can change your entire state of mind, we'll just call it, just by doing 10 burpees.
It's true.
You know, like you might accept bad news better post 10 burpees as opposed to waking up out of bed, right?
That's
It's two different states of mind. So
that's right.
I mean,
and breathing.
So I'm really into breathing.
Breathing is a big deal. And, you know, most of us do it without thinking. But imagine if you put your intention to it, you can really change the nervous system. So belly breathing helps stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps you relax. So that's how you're breathing when you're asleep. If you look at your dog, your dog is probably relaxed and belly breathing, you know, but oftentimes people get stuck in chest breathing. So they have all sorts of tension in their neck and shoulders. I see this a lot with clients.
Yeah.
And they're also anxious most of the time.
Right. So
And it's because they're stimulating the sympathetic nervous system. And so it's causing that reaction without even knowing it.
You casually just mentioned your clients. So you're not just a podcaster.
No, I like to have my hands in lots of pots.
So what do you do professionally?
Professionally, so I've seen clients as a life coach and different capacities for 16 years. So I have a private practice where I work with people who have typically already had therapy. They have some level of self-awareness already. They're looking for someone who can kind of take them to the next level.
So it's not remedial.
It's not remedial.
Okay.
I don't think people would get what I'm trying to teach if they were just starting out. A lot of it is deep self-awareness. And when you teach someone that, I mean, it can be kind of rocky.
How can you teach someone self-awareness?
Well, I do have a workbook, so it helps that they read the workbook, and it's a very specific way that I work with clients. And a lot of it is done in meditation. So
Really?
we will talk about whatever issue someone's having, you know, I mean, whether it's marriage or a lot of people lately about job dissatisfaction, where they want to feel satisfied. They want it to feel like it's coming from a deeper place, not just about making money.
Yeah.
So what I do is I talk to them maybe for the first half hour, and then for the next half hour, we go much, much deeper. So I put them in a state of meditation, and we really look at specific ways that people are getting blocked. And we get blocked by becoming overly attached, typically to a negative thought or a self-limiting thought, and an emotion that gets attached to that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is that I kind of see it as like a form.
What do you
This
mean?
may sound really weird.
No. What do you mean?
So I
Maybe you can give me an example.
yeah. So my master's degree is in somatic counseling psychology. Somatic means body. So
Okay.
everything that I do relates back to the body. So it's not some abstract thing, right? So if someone says, you know, what if people won't like me? I hear that a lot. Okay, so where do you feel that thought in your body? I feel it in my chest. Okay, so let's really feel that. Is there an accompanying emotion with that? Oh, it's fear. Okay, so in the meditation, we'll breathe into that fear and that one specific thought and exhale and let it go. I don't know why it works, but across the board it does. And what will happen is they'll just feel that they have addressed it, become aware of it, because you can't let go of something that you're not aware of. And once they become aware of it, they're able to say, hey, that doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
And what difference does it make? That's where I get them to a much deeper level with themselves.
May I ask
Who
you a
cares?
question?
Yeah.
Once you come to the realization of who cares, you know, how does this serve me? Is that problem, for lack of a better word, solved? You know, sometimes I think we mentioned I've talked about this maybe generally at the podcast meetup. I went to go see a counselor who was probably like like training or something, very green. And I just said, just give me the cheat sheet, cut straight to the spoilers, and just tell me, how do I fix myself? And then by my third session, my third week, I was like, I'm good. I feel great. And she was just like, you know, I don't think you're cured or anything, you know, like,
Are we ever cured?
That's my point. Is like, if I iron over an old association, I mean, I felt like I've buried these things, and they come up. They do come up. So it's like a constant progress. I feel like we're like machines in that we've got to change the oil constantly. You know, there is no, I fixed that. Right.
And because I don't think human beings, I don't think that we're fixable. I don't even see us that way. I view everyone's life with respect, that we all have the struggles that we have for a reason, that patterns keep showing up for a reason, to, I think, to be more conscious of. So I don't really see it as something to be fixed. I see it as we're all on this journey of being a human being together. Let's help each other.
Yeah.
And everybody has patterns that they get stuck in. And we could get real big with that, and maybe even came into this body with that pattern.
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Aren't there some studies where people in utero, depending on the stresses of the mother, like can develop some, not patterns, but like there's like a passage, right? Of stress, maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if a woman is going through a divorce during the pregnancy,
absolutely,
is that baby going to come out anxious, do you think?
Maybe. Because, you know, everything that mom is experiencing gets transferred to that child.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if she's in a high anxious state, there is a propensity then for that baby, once it's born, to have that same kind of imprint. So, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I made a video a couple months ago that I was very scared to make, but it was like a form of therapy for me. And this is like a form of therapy, like all this. I should probably...
Your whole podcast.
Yeah, the whole podcast.
Yeah.
But I made a video talking about, I think it was entitled something like, Why I've Never Killed Myself. And it's sometimes like somebody will say something or something will happen and I'll get triggered, and my brain, and it's always done this, like since I was a child, like will just go to, fuck this, I'm out. It'll just be like, well, I don't even want to fucking be here. I don't want to deal with this. And I have like maybe one person I can text and be like, do I feel like this right now? Like, and they're there for me. And it just helps to be like, I feel like this right now. And in the video, I came up with 6 reasons why I never go through with it. And, you know, I don't think that'll ever go away. And then there's like the aspiring life coach in me that's like, well, if you think that, then it never will, kind of thing. Like, you know, like be positive.
I'm curious about the 6 reasons why
Yeah.
you would not want to commit suicide.
Okay, I had to write them down, so
Yeah.
I know them pretty well. Even though it sounds like a BuzzFeed article, right? Or like a cosmopolitan thing. But number 1 was, so I'm a Christian, and it's, I don't want to go to hell. Even though I don't really believe in hell, but it's like, I don't even want to take, I can't do it. Like I can't, if there is a life everlasting, like I don't want to be punished for what could be a momentary thing. Even if it's like 80 years in my human life, it's still momentary in the grand scheme of things.
So what about this idea of taking 110% responsibility, and that punishment is just how you would feel if you did it?
What do you mean?
So not a punishment coming from something or someone else
You mean God?
necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah.
But your own experience of that.
So a part of me, this is like tricky. That's not an incentive for me to not want to do it, for sure. There's like a
so there's an external punishment that may happen in your mind.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I'm not afraid of the pain that would come from killing myself. That's not enough for me to not want to do it. It's more like the pain of what happens after, you know?
Right.
If anything happens, like maybe nothing happens. I don't know. It's not up to me, but I don't even want to. That's like the first line of defense that goes when I have those thoughts, and that's like a new one, because I just really became saved as a Christian a couple years ago. Another one, in no order, is my family, of course. Like I would ruin my children's lives. I would ruin my lives.
I would agree.
There's a part of me that, this is fucked up. Maybe Claire won't hear this, but like a part of me is like, you'll have to bear it, you know? You'll have to bear that. But my kids, however, is just so not fucking fair to them. And I've just given them a reason to have an out. And I don't want to give them that reason. I think the most like important distinction for one of the reasons why I won't go through with it is I have to remind myself, which is hard, that it's the depression or whatever you want to call it talking. The voice that wants me to do that, that's not my voice.
And how do you distinguish the voice? And this is part of the work that I do with people.
This is a good question.
So there is a voice that says, I'm done.
Yeah.
I want out, right?
Yeah.
And there's another part of you, right? And the work that I do with people, it's based in yogic psychology, which has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Which
Have you ever gone to India?
I have not. But
Oh
I'd
man,
like
you'd
to.
probably dig it the
I
most.
probably dig it. But that there is an ego, and it's not the same ego that maybe Freud talked about, right? So the ego is just, it's almost like a habitual form that we've taken So it's who we think we are.
Yeah, for
based
sure.
on our conditioning, based on
Social programming.
social programming, things that we've decided, hey, that's me.
Yeah.
You know,
And
the fact that I'm female and white
Of course.
and whatever. I mean, the list goes on
They're
and
all
on,
stories,
right? It's
right?
all story.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's that. But yet there's such a bigger, important part of who we are, and that's our being. So the human part is the ego, and the being part is our, what I call our true self.
Really?
True self is that authentic, just this is who I am, regardless of all those labels, regardless.
Yeah.
And it's who I was when I was born.
Yeah.
I'm still that same
You mean like
soul.
you mean like the clean slate?
A pure slate.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's clean. I mean, it's
Well, that's what I mean, like a blank slate, essentially. Pre-programmed, just this. I refer to that essence as like a ball of light.
yes, essence. I like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in any given moment, what are you tuning into? Like if you were tuning into a radio station.
99% of the time, it's all ego. It's all
For you.
ego. 100%.
Okay. But there's part of you that's aware of that.
But that's 1%. The other part is vastly overwhelming. You know, I dropped acid. Did you ever? Are you comfortable? I don't know if you ever taken LSD?
I did when I was younger.
Of course, I dropped acid in 2013. It was something I always wanted to try. I have drug-free tattooed on my knuckles. I don't.
Yes,
it wasn't
you do.
something I wanted to play with. It was just like, you know, the pressure of, like the Beatles. You know, this is like not a peer pressure thing, but this is like a societal like. Well, I want to take this drug. Maybe it'll make me a better artist, right? And I think it did. But what it did was, I took it like at 10 p.m. and I stayed up for like 24 hours. And I've never talked about this on the podcast, but I heard the voice. It was like a split hair, the two voices, and I was like, whoa, this voice that I thought was me the entire time, that's not me. That's the ego, and it's been tricking me this entire time. It only wants what it wants. And then there's the real me voice. Oh, there you are. I miss you. Where have you been? This is like the real me. The one that's like unfuckwithable. The one that, you know, is virtually unaffected from trauma. You know, this is like a beautiful part of me, and it is in me. But the ego like wants to forfeit that side just so it could be satiated.
Yes.
I was like, what?
That's a beautiful way to put it.
What is this? Yeah, and it's harmful too. And so I think that helped. I'm not saying I was not born, but I grew up hyper self-aware for sure.
Me too.
But that helped. Like that helped me differentiate the two voices. They would have been one and the same. And I think for most people, it is one and the same.
I would say congratulations. Because
Well,
that
thanks.
is a huge step forward because...
Well, that sounds like an endorsement for drugs.
No.
I'm kidding.
Well, I have a lot to say about that.
We can get into
I
it.
do. Well, so Ram Dass, do you know?
Just passed away.
Just passed away.
Yeah.
And I've had his book, what is it, Be Here Now?
Okay.
Is that it?
That
I
sounds-
feel really silly to not be able to remember that right
That
now.
sounds
But
correct.
I read his preface, and he really says that his whole life journey was in 3 sections. The first section, he grew up, from what I could tell, in a well-educated, well-to-do Jewish family. He was overly educated. He was teaching at Harvard and all the Ivy League schools and it was psychology, and it had more to do with behavioralism, that kind of thing. And he felt like he wasn't really connecting with the work, and he wasn't connecting with his students. There had to be more,
Yeah.
right? Because he was becoming aware. He's like, he had all this money, he had this prestige, he had this, but there was something that felt very empty about it.
Is this the first section?
This is the first section of his life.
And what does he call that?
Academic.
I see.
I don't know. He was just a high achiever in the Western sense of the meaning. Then with Timothy Leary, he started doing acid and doing it in a semi-controlled way.
Sure.
Had other students involved and all that.
Very interesting.
This is about a 7-year period, I believe.
Wow.
So 7 years he's doing this. loses his prestigious jobs in the process to where he's only really traveling and giving talks about what LSD can do for you, right? But what he talks about is that there's this high that he got, but it always come down.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So because it's synthetic, it's you're putting something in your body, and the brain is changing its chemistry.
Yeah. There are organic pathways, however.
Right.
Yeah. Which I've never dabbled in, but
So he got some insights, right? But it wasn't the full picture. That's why he calls it, I think, his second stage, because there was a third stage. And that third stage was when he actually went to India and he had a guru. And there was no medication. There was no drugs, right? One of the parts, he says that he gave some of his LSD to the guru, and the guru just laughed. I mean, it didn't do anything. And the way that he explains it is because that his level of vibration, or he was so high,
yeah, for sure,
that it had no impact. It's like it's a game, right? So there are all levels of consciousness, and there are all levels of awareness.
That's right.
And for me, I can only speak to my experience.
Yeah.
I do not need drugs to get to that state. I have been meditating consistently since 2007. That's 12 years. One of the interviews that I did was with psychiatrist Dr. Turnipseed, and he is one of the leading psychiatrists in Austin who does ketamine injections for depression. So, which is supposed to have a much higher rate than a lot of the SNRIs or SSRIs, because sadly for depression, I think there's only like a 20% effectiveness rate, or 30%. It's pretty low in being able to treat it. So he's an advocate clearly for ketamine. And he's asked me if I would ever be interested in that. And I said, no. I mean, I've been through that stage in my life, and it was short lived, and I got what I needed. But to me, what I teach people and what I try to practice every day is really just becoming in line with my true self and letting the ego go.
Well, two things, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Is it the ego that's saying, I don't need to try that, I don't need to dabble in that? Or is that the true self?
Can I answer that question first?
Of course.
I don't like to mess around with my body. And the reason being, I'm pretty open about this, I do have an anxiety disorder. Even when I'm not on anything, I can get pretty anxious. And so I have to be very careful about what I put into my body.
Of course. So
it would just probably put me in an anxiety state. I probably would have amazing realizations, but to me, it's not worth.
I understand
all that.
The margin of risk is just not worth it. I totally get that.
So not worth it for me.
I guess like I want to voice the opinion of people that are really into that, even though I'm not into that. You know, take something like psilocybin, which I think comes from mushrooms. You know, that's now being treated for the people that have PTSD and trauma and depression. And it's like, well, 30 years ago, maybe it wasn't in a Western kind of context, but now it is. And you can look at these things. People can look at these things, and I don't want to get into the weeds here, but as something like mushrooms or cannabis, or like these technologies that are organic, because you mentioned the word synthetic with LSD, but then there's something like cannabis where I have smoked marijuana. I sound like such a square, and it just made me extremely paranoid.
Me too.
But I think that's part of this, we'll call it a spell of social conditioning. And what marijuana does, or did for me, once again, a subjective experience, was heighten my awareness. And so all those anxieties are completely there and valid, because we live in a concrete jungle. And
yes, we do.
For people that take an edible and they go in an airplane, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I'm in a moving machine sitting in a seat in the sky. Like, this is trippy, dude. And that's that's reality though. That is reality. And so there's something about going into that higher plane of existence. It's like taking a cruise. If you go on a cruise thinking the ship's going to sink, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to be anxious. The same thing with marijuana. Like if you smoke or whatever, or take an edible and you think you're going to have a bad time, you could. And so that's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, and there's a conflict there, right? Like a consciousness conflict where, well, how come I'm not letting, like, there are people that take it and then they become more lovable or like more positive and very like, you know, can I give you a hug? But without it, they're guarded and they're very like, I would never give you a hug, you know, like, and so there's some, I feel like it could have a benefit on some brains, that maybe people don't even access self-awareness until they try something like that for the first time, you
and
know?
that could be right. And everybody's so different.
Everybody is different.
All of our biochemistry is different. I mean, we have different genetics, we've got different life paths, so what works for one person may not work for somebody else, and that's why I always say I can only speak to my experience.
Are you a doctor?
No.
Okay, so I can't call you a doctor.
I'm not one.
What is like the nomenclature here?
There's none.
Okay.
So I have a master's degree.
Are you like some sort of health practitioner?
No, I have a master's degree in counseling psychology.
You're a counselor.
And I cannot call myself a counselor. I am not licensed by the state of Texas because I don't want to be.
Okay.
But I'm a life coach.
Okay, you're a life coach.
But with a ton of experience. So.
How do you, because I look at it like it's got to be something like almost like not a fight, but almost like grappling somehow, where you gotta, you know, do you do yoga?
I'm a yoga teacher
You're
too.
a yoga teacher too. Golly, you do it all. Obviously, you have to put pressure and resistance to get your muscles to do a certain thing, and it takes time to do that. Mm-hmm. And I would say this, and that's the body. I would say the same thing is applied to human psychology and emotions. Mm-hmm. So how do you bend people to certain silhouettes, shapes, and forms, like with emotionally? How do you do that? Like when a person walks in, how do you do that? Like what moves do you know to do with this person when they're coming in with completely different genetic makeup, and you might not know what that is? They're coming in with completely different patterns and baggage and trauma from childhood and blah blah blah. They might be coming in with, you know, food changes our chemistry, right? Like, you know, some people might not have drank coffee that day they meet you, and so they're going to appear different, and you're going to have a different assessment on them because they didn't have their caffeine that day or whatever. So how do you figure it out? Like, do you have people submit surveys or questionnaires? Like, how do you deduce someone into simple forms, and you can, I don't want to say diagnose, but then you can treat them?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing is they fill out about a 5-page form before I even meet them. Okay. Because I need all that information. Mm-hmm. It's very specific, and it's broken down into the physical, also emotional. How can I take basically someone who walks into my office and with all these variabilities, right?
That's right.
One of the main questions that I ask them in the form is, what do you want to accomplish in our work together? Because that is key.
Yeah, start with why.
That is their motivation. What is their why? Yeah. Why did they even contact me in the first place? And my goal is to help them achieve that, whatever it is, right? So that's like my target. If you could imagine, literally like playing darts, that's my aim. So I will keep coming back to that over and over again. And I think another part of my training, where I started out in my late 20s, was doing polarity therapy, which is based in Ayurvedic medicine from India and Chinese medicine from China. Dr. Randolph Stone was an osteopath, and he created this modality, this way of working with people. And so it's all about the energetic system of the body and finding blocks and being able to remove those blocks. I have carried that same philosophy throughout all my training in grad school, through my internships, and through my private practice, where that's still the mindset that I have whenever I'm sitting down with someone. They tell me what they want, and I'm looking for what's in the way. And typically, it's an ego emotion, an ego thought, or maybe a culmination of both that's tied with a behavior. And once I find that, we go into meditation and we just look at it from an objective, mindful standpoint. So it's almost like looking at yourself. What's an example?
It's like watching your life's movie and then doing some commentary on it.
In a very, very, very now moment. So it's like looking, I don't know how to describe it. It's like looking at, like I broke my finger, and it's like saying, okay, we're going to get into this meditative state and we're going to look at the finger objectively and what does it need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very in the moment. We're not way out here. We're very, very, very specific and slow.
Would you say it's more micro than it is macro?
Yes.
Mm.
It's very, very focused.
Mm.
And with that, we're able to be with that ego construct
Yeah.
in a very mindful way and then be able to let it go.
Yeah.
And typically what will happen is the person is like, why was that even a thing? Like, that's so silly in the whole scheme of things, right? Because they're connecting to that deeper part of themselves. And I want to get back to the taking any kind of drug or taking anything to get yourself high, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think the whole point of that is to get to a place where you remember who the hell you really are.
Of course.
And it's that ball of light. It's that energy.
Yeah.
It's that
the
is
source.
It's the source. That's
Yeah.
the most important thing. We are here as human beings having an experience of being a human being, but don't forget who you really are.
Right.
Because the most unhappy people I've ever seen that I've worked with have completely forgotten that.
The word happiness is like I'm almost cynical towards.
Yeah, me too.
Like
I get it.
It sends a signal to my brain that makes me go, happiness is not a sustainable state necessarily. Like you can, I think, call it a home, but you do have to leave your home to go do things, you know, to go be a part of society and to contribute. Like you can't just live there, so to speak. I mean, maybe the monks in Tunisia. I know that's not right. Wherever they're from. Where are they from? Tibet, Tunisia.
I think you made that one up.
I haven't traveled there, so Tunisia exists, but it's just a fucking desert.
Okay.
So maybe all they think of is bliss, 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 nirvana, nirvana, nirvana. You know, and maybe that works for them. But at the same time, like they're trying to, it's almost like they're trying to make an unnatural thing natural. You know, like to live in this state of happiness, like.
And maybe we shouldn't use the word happy.
Well, that's a tricky thing.
Maybe it's more, in the way that I talk about it with clients, it's more like a feeling of connectedness, because happy is an emotion. Emotions come and go.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe it's more of that sense of deep, deep inner peace and connection.
Yeah.
So back to your point what are monks trying to achieve? And you said that it's almost like an unnatural thing.
Yeah, like if they're trying to, if it requires so much effort, you know, it might be because it's not natural. You know, it's like trying to achieve a perpetual state of orgasm. It's not, you know, it's not sustainable. You know, it comes in bursts or whatever. Like you can't just live in a state of climax, you know, like happiness to me is just almost like a positive consequence, you know, that comes from some sort of effort, you know, but we also have to eat and sleep and recharge and like, you know, we have to put deposits in different aspects of our lives, right? Let me ask you a personal question. I have a journal here and I don't want to pull out the words, but I articulated this entire trapping that has, for lack of a better word, fucked my life forever. And it's like, if I can just nuke this one problem, I feel like, oh man, like, let me tell you what I live for, what I want to get out of life. If you had to ask me for a target, it would be, I want, and this might be childish, so I'm saying it to a real adult. We'll see how this, because I've said this in my head forever, but let me get this out of my head.
Are you calling me the real adult?
Yeah, you're the real adult. I'm so lucky and blessed and fortunate. Like, you know, I got a good job right now. I got health insurance right now. And, you know, I got a family that loves me and they support me. And like, that's dope. That started out as a fantasy, you know, and now it's real and that's a dream come true. And like, that's awesome. For me personally, like I believe in like the best that you can be, the most optimized version of you. And I think that to me, it's not about the results. It's about waking up as that person, like that inner peace, but also waking up as like, it's a higher equilibrium as well. Mm-hmm. And I've met people that they're there, and it took decades for sure. And so if you look at it on a scale of 1 to 100, say I wrote a thesis in college, but I know that, and I got an A in it or whatever, however you get graded, but I know that, I phoned it in. Oh, I have my heater on. Let's just say I knew that I phoned it in. I knew that.
What does that mean? Sorry.
Let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, like, let's just say I woke up and I did it the night before, as opposed to I put my blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. It's passionate. I left it all on the table or whatever, like all those euphemisms. And so I got an A, but I knew I gave it I put like 30% of my effort in it. I've gone through most of my life putting 30% of my effort into things. And therefore, I've developed, now that I'm going to be 32, on a long enough timeline, like I've developed a sense of guilt and shame from that, of like, yeah, you have okay things, but you could have had better things, and you could have even better things in the future, not like material. What's his name? Deepak Chopra talks about the superstition of materialism. I'm all about that. Like, I don't care about things per se, but like, I like the feeling of waking up and knowing that I did a good job. I'm tired of half-assing my way through life, and I've always done that ever since I was a child. Like, phone it in. I would love to be. I would feel like this human experiment that I was lucky enough to be able to play with. I would feel like I maximized the human experience. If I got to at least touch operating at level 100. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I'd settle for 80, right?
Me too.
I'd settle for 70%.
Me too.
Full human optimization, whatever that is. I don't even know if it's achievable. That's the childish part.
Is it childish?
I don't know. Like, it could be. It could be like, I want to be Superman. I don't want to lift a car over my head, right? But I do want to be. I want to achieve, like, and maybe it's a male thing. I don't know. Like, I want to achieve a sort of mastery, a personal mastery, like that to me. So if I went into your office, I'd be like, how do I fully optimize myself? Like, I want to be the best version of me that I could be. That means, and like, how do you not, maybe it's not about perfection. Like, your diet, does that mean I can't have a carb? I need to know. Like, I need to know what, I wish I had the blueprint, so to speak, of
right.
like, of this
so
fully realized kind
of
person.
Here's the deal with that. It's all about what you want to create. So part of all that, in my experience, because I have a lot of the same drive that I would articulate it probably slightly differently, but I have the same drive.
Really?
That you just explained. And I think that's just part of creation. I think that's part of, okay, cool, I've done this, or I've experienced this, or I'm at this certain level in my life. What's next?
Yeah.
Could it be even more brilliant? Could it be better in some ways? But
you and I both know, if we come from the same ilk, same tapestry, then you and I both know, well, of course it can. Of course it can. Because and not like in a cocky way, but so I have to like speak from my truth. I made a movie in 2012, and I put like 7 points of effort out of 100. And it was like an okay success. But I look at that movie now and I'm like, it shows. Mm-hmm. It shows. It's very, you could see the duct tape, and you can see how it was put together. It's very shoddy. I want to make something that, like, I just want to be like, Shirley, like, who's a hero of yours? Somebody that you look up to.
That's hard.
Okay.
I don't know.
In my world, it's a very like, pop culture-y, Mm-hmm. In my world, it's like somebody like what's someone that's ubiquitous? I guess, like, I'll just say Barack Obama. I don't know. He was pretty accomplished. I don't want like the awards, and I don't want to be president and stuff like that. But like, surely he can go to bed saying like, I put it all on the line.
Yeah. Is that really what you want?
Not to be president, but
No, I mean to put it out on the line. Is that a desire?
yeah, because when you've achieved certain things and I wasn't even trying, that's where the imposter syndrome comes in, and then you carry that with you wherever you go, and then that's where like self-resentment comes in, and that's where bitterness comes in, and all these, Tony Robbins calls them disempowering emotions. And they all come in, and then they feed off each other, and the ego is like, you know what, have an Oreo, forget about this, and that's not a great place to be. So it's kind of like, and here's like the word I try to avoid, but it hurts, and so I know it's like the real one is like, it's a laziness though.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
I would say.
And so like lethargy, how do we cure that?
I see laziness all the time, and I see clients come in and they say that I want this thing. Okay, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you get it. Laziness. Holy moly.
Can I get a journal and read something to you?
Heck yeah.
Because it hurts. It really hurts.
Okay. Do we want you to hurt? Is that our goal here?
I don't want to be disingenuous,
Okay.
Might have to go to the potty, but I think I'll hold it. Are you good on time?
I am. I don't have anywhere I gotta be.
Okay.
Can I speak to laziness?
I want you to.
Okay. I see it all the time, and it kind of drives me crazy because we get in our own way by disempowering ourselves and not coming up with enough energy or gumption. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's like we lack. That's why I'm always like, what do you really, really, really want? Not what, oh, that would be nice to experience that. Or if you're
I don't fuck with nice to haves.
Yeah. Because
I fuck with, this is what I want.
Exactly. And I kind of think about it this way, and this is maybe a metaphysical again.
It's too dark.
It's okay. I can handle dark.
We'll get into it.
But gravity is a thing, right?
Yes.
So there is gravity. We feel that force, that pressure on our bodies all the time.
That's right.
And thank God we have it. Like, it's grounding. I don't know where I'm going exactly with this idea, but if, I guess if we were to be super lazy, we could just lay on the floor, right? It takes energy. It takes motivation. It takes why do I want to get off the floor and go and do something? Why do I want to be here as a human being? What do I want to get out of this experience? It's not going to last forever.
It takes a compelling reason.
Yes. So what is your why? What is your reason?
And it also has to be,
has to know
it has to be compelling though.
Exactly.
It can't, I was just talking about this on another podcast. It can't just be, I really want to lose 3 pounds. That's not enough.
You're not going to do it.
It's not enough. Maybe you'll do it, but then
so what?
That void, there'll be another void, right? Like
yeah.
It needs to be something in perpetuity, like it's a journey.
Yeah.
I'm going to read something here, and feel free to interrupt me anytime.
And what would you like for me to listen for, or why do you want to share it with me?
I would have never shared this with anybody, but it's like a honestly, and this is very, somebody that was at the podcast meetup, I won't out them, but somebody that was there had cancer, and so literally was dying, like literally had cancer, but they're fine now. They removed it, but cancer is nothing to fuck with. Fuck cancer, right? And so what I'm about to say, I don't want to sound over dramatic, but like this to me is like a disease though. It's not a disease like cancer is a disease, but it's an invisible disease, and so I want you to be able to help me cut it out.
Okay.
I want to cut it out, and I have to believe that you can, because if I can't, honestly, if I can't, like I don't want to, like I want off the ride. I want off the ride, and I just want off the ride. Like I don't want to. Okay, I gotta just. Okay, let me just read it.
Okay.
This is March 31st, 2016, 6:50 a.m. on a Thursday. I was walking early this morning. Woke up in a lousy state due to the day before. I woke up yesterday. Oh Jesus! I woke up yesterday. Stay with me here. I woke up yesterday, masturbated in the shower, and immediately ate a leftover Pizza Hut pizza slice for breakfast. Came to work, didn't exercise because I woke up late, and ordered a chocolate frappe with 4 shots of espresso.
Ooh.
It spilled on my desk 10 minutes later. For lunch, I had... This fucking hurts, man. For lunch, I had a 20-piece chicken nugget meal at McDonald's. Oh, God. This is... We're not even in it. Instead of barbecue sauce for the nuggets, I used a chocolate fudge sundae.
Whoa.
I bought candy later, and when I was at home, I went to Taqueria Morales and ordered taco gigante, which means giant taco,
Yes.
with just fajita, and a baked potato and a glass bottle of Mexican Coke. I went to the Donna Park and ate the meal by myself. I went home, had a cup of Cookie Crisp cereal, hung out with the kids, and fell asleep. Needless to say, I was in a lot of pain yesterday, running away from something serious. Super deep stuff. I've been ignoring my business, getting fat. I've been wanting to try to go to an open mic, but I've been too chicken shit. And this is all related. So, like I said, I woke up in a lousy state, forced myself out of bed at 3:30 in the morning. See, I'm very extreme. It's either one or the other. I started walking behind my apartment, which I love. And it was around the 3rd lap, it occurred to me, I haven't said my incantation out loud in a long time. And I thought that was interesting. So I decided to say it. Not just say it, but yell it with as much energy as I normally do to put me into a positive state. And this was my incantation at the time. I now command my subconscious mind to give me the humor, the courage, the confidence, the creativity, everything it takes to make today the greatest, most powerful, meaningful, and significant and productive moment that it can possibly be, so that the world and everybody around me can change the way that it sees itself for the better right now. And I would just scream that to myself.
So I'm going to pause.
Over and over again.
Reading that right now, what do you feel right now?
Fucking phenomenal. Better.
I do too.
Better, yeah.
I could feel it up my spine. And
I know.
I'm like,
it sounds very heady to people that haven't really
ooh, I like
had
it.
something that was curated towards your primary mission in life, whatever that is. But like when it is, and you know what it is, and you move your body in a certain way, and you say it, and you breathe in a certain way, and you exhale in a certain way, like it does something to your brain. And if you've conditioned this incantation during states of mind that are like really, really high, like let's say your BPM is at a certain level, or whatever it is, like your brain creates these neurological pathways that sort of remind you and take you back up to that state.
Right.
And that's something that can be conditioned, exercised, and it's so I reminded myself that, and I said it. And actually, to my sincere surprise, going back to the journal, just saying my incantation snapped me out of that lousy state. I cried. I was grateful for that power. I started asking myself some personal questions like, if I'm being honest with myself, what am I afraid of? What am I scared of? What don't I want to talk about? Those are questions that it's hard to get to it's hard to get to a place where you have to say, what am I scared to talk about? That's that looking in the mirror shit. I was honest with myself, very honest, definitely at the point of being ashamed of myself, so honest. The following are conclusions that I arrived at. And then in all caps, laziness. Parenthetically, obviously, has been the great war of my life. It's been my great depression, the place that I retreat like a scared turtle. Laziness comes from fear, an instinct at this point. Woo, getting some anxiety, man. It's a survival instinct, an auto response. This response, the automated state of approach avoidance, has been conditioned and rehearsed my entire life. It's the reason everything has been so difficult for me. So what is laziness, and how do I define laziness? Well, it's a state of paralysis, a state of emotional and thereby physiological collapse. It's a retreat, a safeguard, to remain idle, to stay safe. Safe from what? Well, pain. What kind of pain? The risk of exposure. Exposure. What do I mean by this? Look, I haven't read this since I wrote it. Look, first of all, at depression like this. Depression is hiding yourself from yourself. When I was 4, my father abandoned my family, destroyed my mother emotionally and financially, took her years to recover. Sidebar, she filed for bankruptcy. She was so much stronger than I'll ever know. So I didn't have a male figure, a father, to teach me to go outside and force me out of my comfort zone, sidebar, which I do with my son. I didn't have a father to teach me not to be lazy. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. All he ever did was teach me how to be scared of abandonment. So I stayed home where I was safe and watched the real world pass me by at the expense of experience and emotional maturity. So this laziness plague comes from a place of positive intent. Yes, it is sabotaging myself, but my subconscious is trying to protect me and protect myself from harm. But unfortunately for me, and this is where I had a breakthrough, this laziness plague spared me from the labor of hard work. This was something I didn't get to properly develop, learn, or earn. This is another virtue and value and lesson that should come directly from a father or male figure, at least for a male himself. My mom tried, yet she also enabled my couch potato syndrome. Plus, as a child, teen, and young adult, she was rarely there. She couldn't teach me this labor properly because she was too busy being busy with working hard herself. Ironic. I don't blame her. She did try. As a result, I tried to be homeless to make it. I just suffered needlessly. Sidebar. So when I moved to Austin, I was homeless for 6 weeks, 42 days, and until I got a job. I mentioned that to you, and it was just a way to. I'm gonna figure this out no matter what. I mean, like I also said at the podcast meetup, that's nothing I would never ask my son to do, but I did it because I didn't know any better. Without a father, I seeked a male role model, and I seeked father figures, and more so practically. I can't read. I applied a DIY approach. Hence, the insurmountable attempts and trials and errors, which is basically where this journal comes from, isn't it? I tried to teach myself that's hard. Some people never figure it out and suffer forever. Thank God for Tony Robbins, I wrote. I was a big Tony Robbins kid. So look, when I was a kid, I'd get picked on. I would get bullied. I hated going out. I was socially anxious, and it was difficult to make friends, so I retreated, and I became lazy eventually. But it does stem from a positive intent, self-preservation, which is the first law of nature. I retreated to books, movies, masturbation, DIY remedies. These later became burdens like excessive eating, shoplifting. I became a cinephile. But this is what led me to being a shut-in, a lazy couch potato, living vicariously through his imagination and his dreams. This became routine. This became my makeup. I became chicken shit. Flash forward to college. I've never said this out loud, this part in my life. Too much pain for me, too much anxiety and pressure. Plus, I wasn't equipped with the developed sense of pushing through with hard work, which is what college is all about. So I resorted to being held down and held back again by being lazy. Example, I would borrow, I don't know if I want to say this person's name, but
maybe not.
I would borrow my cousin's car to go to college, but then he would lend me his car and I would drive around. I would go someplace else and I would just sit down and wait out the clock, and then I'd go back. And I highlighted what I'm about to say next with a highlighter. And this is the hardest thing I've ever had to say out loud. This right here is the hardest thing I've ever had to say out loud. I became a master at the illusion of activity. This is a byproduct of the plague of laziness, one of the side effects. I was taking and paying for those college classes because I showed the remedial math class the semester before. I was taking remedial math because on my SAT, I just answered B on everything on the math part. Laziness leads to dumbass, inefficient decisions. These decisions ultimately lead to your destiny one way or the other, and they have. Look at my struggle now. I don't want to mention this. Well, I guess I will. I made my second feature film. Look more recently at The Seven Hands of God, which was my second feature film. Now, this morning on my walk, like I said, I was being very honest with myself. During The Seven Hands of God, I was scared shitless of many things. My producer, the endeavor. I was in a head-to-head battle with 20 years of conditioned responses begging me not to answer the phone, to not wake up, to sleep in, to be anxious, to not go outside, because that's where the pain of hard work is. Those decisions, these lack of decisions, led me to the cause of my own suffering, and I paid dearly for it. I lost $8,000 on that movie, and I don't have my own copy of it, so it's like it never happened. And this was during the pregnancy of my daughter, and so it was just a very tough time.
Yeah.
I had a breakdown. I had a breakdown of my own around Thanksgiving, no less.
It's all about Thanksgiving.
I had a break. Still the greatest moments of my life. Still the greatest moments of my life I've also written about in this journal come from overcoming the voice in my head, overcoming this ailment, defeating the plague, and enjoying that process. Waking up at 3 a.m. to prove to myself that I can work hard, that I'm not lazy, riding my bike to work, to and from, 32 miles round trip, because you see, I'm not lazy. I'm not afraid of hard work. It's easier to watch movies than it is to make them. And at the end of the day, when I'm being honest with myself, I know that laziness isn't a plague. That's just a story I tell myself, a story I've told myself. An excuse to be afraid, a reason to give up, to not work hard. It's not my fault after all. It wasn't my fault my father abandoned me and my family, but after all, didn't I decide that? Didn't I decide that? Didn't I make up that story? Well, the meaning of it, I also highlighted this part. Laziness is a decision. And I no longer accept that self-assigned, self-assessed ailment, disease, handicap. I accept the subversion of it and my destiny that comes with it.
Can we pause right there? As you're writing
the last line is, that was my breakthrough.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that last part,
yeah,
were you connected to your true self when you wrote that?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so the illness or the plague,
yeah,
I think is true for every human being. Every human being just has their own version of what that is, right?
Yes.
So mine's not laziness, it's hypervigilance. It's learning how to just be without having to feel the pressure to do or create or whatever it is, right? So I think that's true to some degree for every single human being if they were really to be honest with themselves. And it's okay. And I think the whole point of it is to know our particular ego well so that we can come and make this, it's a perspective shift from that place of being compassionate for ourselves and being conscious and saying, okay, so this is the ego that I'm dealing with. And it's almost like, how can you love yourself through it?
Exactly.
And really, it's just an illusion anyway. It's a story.
Yeah.
And I loved how you said about your dad abandoning you. You created in your own mind what that meant for you.
Yeah.
And that's empowering in and of itself.
I suppose. It's hard to see that.
I know it's hard to see it, especially when you're in it, right? But to me...
And it's hard to contrast it to somebody else's unique experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why... I don't know. I do think that it's so healing to share first with yourself what you're really going through and be able to have the courage to share it with somebody else, because more than likely they'll relate.
Yeah, I hope so. I just thought of something. Something I mentioned on a podcast with my wife a couple of weeks ago was I have these recurring nightmares that I'm constantly trying to kill somebody that doesn't want to die. Like I'm trying to drown them like on the shore of a beach and they don't die. Or I keep stabbing somebody or hitting their head with a hammer and they just keep moving and they don't die. And it's very frustrating. I've chopped up people's bodies and like thrown them on different sides of the town only to find their missing limbs like in my garage.
Oh, geez.
And it's like, what's going on?
What is going on?
And Claire, her assessment was, I think you're trying to cut off parts of yourself. And at the time I was just like, what? I don't see that. But it's like, there's this part of myself, this laziness that is like an enemy. It's my nemesis, you know? And if I could, like a tumor, operate that and take that out, I fucking would. But it's not, I mean, you could say it's built up insofar as I feel it in my chest, I feel it in my head, I feel it in my knees. Like I feel it, I could tell you where I feel it.
Yeah.
And I could concentrate, but like you still have to deploy energy and light onto it to disintegrate it, right? But that's like I you know, the truth is like what Claire said about the dreams, is that's my subconscious saying, it's you. It's not this body that you're trying to get rid of. Like, it's you, and you really have to work on it every day, or if you don't, like, it comes to a head.
There's
And
also,
it never comes at the right time. It comes
right. It's very inconvenient.
very inconvenient.
Very inconvenient.
Yeah.
I
And
would
when I
still
say
go-
I want to kill myself,
Yeah.
it's fucking that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I want to destroy.
So-
Not me, the dad, not me, the Christian, not me, the self-aware artist that, you know, has too much, that actually can admit that life is beautiful. Like, it's this part of me that I despise. That's not
just
really
to
me.
share with you the many, many, many people I've worked with and myself that I've worked with.
Yeah.
There are always parts of us that we don't like, right? And it's the ego that we most don't like. And oftentimes when Westerners start to do this type of work, they think that it's about eradicating the ego, or it's about killing it off, or it's
Right.
getting rid of this bad part of me. I like to say this, like, let's say it's a really bright sunny day and you walk outside and you see your shadow. That's all the ego really is. It's a shadow. And you can't eradicate a shadow. It's you, and it's just a part of being a human being. The human part is messy. It's disorganized. It can be extremely negative. It can be traumatic. It can be painful. All these human parts it's not a fun ride. I don't think that being a human being is intended to be a fun ride. I mean, there are nice parts to it, but it is work.
It's a hostile world.
It can be very hostile.
Yeah. I mean, just being on this rock that's spinning down the galaxy, that's hostile. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
we're busy killing each other and not treating each other well. And
I remember when my daughter was born, one of my first thoughts when she came out of, like, the sack or whatever, was thinking, like, oh shit, the light. Oh man, the air is, like, what's the temperature right now? Like, I remember just thinking, like, you were fine, you know, when you were in the belly, you were fine. That was ideal. And now, fuck, all these things are happening to you, at you, very abrasively, you know. And I felt like I just wanted to be the shade for this child, you know. But, like, that's the hostility of the world, anyways, that I wanted to highlight. But
Right.
yeah, that's what I meant. Just being on the planet, you know, this ecosystem there's shit that's out to get us. I went to the store yesterday with my daughter, and we were walking down the parking lot to my car, and she was like, I'm gonna hold your hand forever, Papa, because I don't want anybody to take me. And I was just like, damn right. Yeah, you know, just like, yeah, exactly that right there, you know. But we also have to, you know, I didn't have that figure, you know, and I'm very grateful to be that figure for the kids.
Good.
But I certainly didn't have that. And, like, being it's like a genetic thing. I was one of those kids that just needed a little, I don't want to even say extra attention, just attention. I just needed some attention. Like, my mom never sat down on the floor with me and looked at me and said, are you good? Like, she never did that, you know? And that's not her fault. That's not. And her parents never did that for her either, I'm sure, you know? But I just was like a very, just needed some love. Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah, we all do.
We all
That's
do.
my point. Like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, to piggyback on you sharing what you shared, which I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. You're welcome. My pleasure. You're welcome for my service.
But it takes a lot of bravery to be able to share that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, like, I haven't shared necessarily the why for my show, for my video podcast.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet, but
okay, I'm glad I haven't said anything then.
What do you mean?
Just anything revolving around, like, Thanksgiving.
Well, I could say it now.
Okay.
I feel like you shared, I can share.
Okay.
Yeah.
The law of reciprocity.
The law of reciprocity. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got a delicate nervous system. And that's probably why I got attracted to meditation and to yoga. I mean, I started doing yoga at 18, and just a lot of self-care that I've had to exercise, like way more than what I've seen with my peers or family members, or, you know, the slightest thing will just kind of throw me off. So, but here I built a whole career around it, right? About helping others how to find more balance and all this. Because we had my business partner and I had written a book, and we were doing a bunch of events and workshops, and I was like, I got it. I get this thing. So, but naturally, like around June or July of 2017, I just stopped sleeping. And it was a gradual thing, but it ended up being like my Thanksgiving break. Yes. And that was 2017, where I just literally was not sleeping. And I was going to all sorts of doctors. I was seeing a counselor. I was doing all these alternative things too, and testing stuff like crazy to try to figure out what the fuck was going on. It was terrifying. And I couldn't see clients anymore. I couldn't drive more than 10 minutes. I mean, I was just completely out of it. But like in this very like intense state. But I mean, that's sleep deprivation too. I mean, that will do it to you.
I've gone 8 days without sleeping.
Yeah, it sucks.
I felt like I got brain damage.
I think, I was just trying to function, right? But I had no idea what was going on.
Started seeing shit. Like, it was terrible.
I didn't get to that point.
I remember driving, thinking I was going the speed limit. I was going 15 miles an hour, and I saw like moose to the right of me.
Wow.
Like reindeer.
Yeah.
They weren't fucking there.
Yeah. You start to.
There's no way.
Yeah. The importance of sleep, right?
Oh, hell
like,
yeah.
it is extremely important. So I ended up in the hospital.
Who'd have figured?
I know. And they diagnosed me with insomnia. I'm like, yeah, okay. What I didn't understand was that it was neurological. It was my neurochemistry that had gone haywire. All on its own, naturally.
Just activated out of the blue?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there is a history of mental illness in my family. So, and when we really look at that, a lot of people don't really understand what mental illness is. It's just like any other health issue. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing. It's brain health. It's the nervous system. It's just a different system, right? Like if you're looking at, you have kidney issues. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's I can't remember what system that is, but it's just a part of the body that just can go out of whack.
That's right.
So I was actually in outpatient for 2 weeks, and I did that on purpose. I wanted to be supervised. I wanted the psychiatrist to be there. I wanted a nurse to be there because I felt like I was dying. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it because nothing was making sense. So finally, when I started getting enough sleep, I would say like about a month in, because I was taking a sleeping medication and an anti-anxiety, things were starting to come back, right? And I'm like, holy shit, what was that?
Yeah.
And I ended my business, and it was one of those moments, a lot of what you've been describing. It was kind of like, okay, now's the time. I don't know what that means in the whole cosmic sense, but it's like, okay, you've had this experience. You have to share this with people. You have to start.
Do you think that's a form of like self-care as well? Like maybe therapy in a way, like sort of cleaning out the closet or something?
Maybe. I don't know, but I feel extremely motivated.
It's got to be as much for you as it is for others.
Yeah.
Or else I don't know why you would do it.
I don't know. I'm a little peculiar that way. I guess I've always been someone, like, if I learn something, it's just an enthusiasm.
Yeah.
A natural enthusiasm. If I learn something, I want to tell somebody.
Yeah.
Look what I learned, or this might help you. It's just my instinct. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, it's a home for you.
It's a home.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it when people learn something and share it with me. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
I guess it's a tribal sense or something, like wanting to build my community of stronger people. Like, let's not all go through the same hell.
Right.
Like, if one of us could go through it and then teach other people like how to not go through that.
Do you feel like your episode is more of a warning or an example?
Oh, it's more of a self-discovery. Because what I ended up doing, I decided that, I wanted to write a book about this experience and about the knowledge that I've accumulated. I reverse engineered that, and I was like, well, I want to interview a bunch of people, a bunch of experts, and I want to be able to share that experience while I'm writing the book. So why not, like, interview these people publicly?
Yeah.
On a show.
You should do a podcast.
I should do a video podcast because I like the video aspect too.
Yeah.
So really the people that I ended up interviewing for the first season. So that's still coming out right now, but I did it a year ahead of time because that's my personality. But
I love that.
like the opposite of lazy. I'm like, chill out, Erika.
Yeah, easier said than done. I respect that. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's
I told you this at the meetup. Like
yes.
if I had to write down a list, like you've already got like 9 out of 10 of those things in the can.
You. Good.
Yeah, for sure.
So I interview the people that helped me, like that helped me heal and get more of an understanding of what happened to me, why it happened, how I can make adjustments to mainly with supplements and medication, how I can help myself just be healthier so that doesn't happen again. And these are lifestyle changes that I will do until I die. It's just a done deal.
There's no going back.
There's absolutely no.
Reading that almost reminded me. I guess I just kind of you get caught up in shit, you know, like life happens, you get caught up, and then I'm very big on I got to just get to the next thing. I got to okay, I'll kill myself now, but then I got to get to the next thing. If I could just get there, I'll reassess, and then sometimes you never do. That was 4 years ago. That was 4 years ago, you know. So it's good to remember, and I forgot my nemesis. You know, I externalize it into other things, and I project it onto other people. You know how people say, like, you could never say something to me that I haven't already said to myself that would hurt me. And I felt that way. Like, if someone tries to hurt me, it's like, man, trust me. Well, I've said some even more fucked up shit about myself. And I think that what I read was very true of that. But I think we're doing amazing, amazing work. And I couldn't have had this conversation with anybody else. So this is you. This is your aura that you brought to the table. And part of my, I'm not really good at faking it. Like, I'm not really good
I'm terrible at faking it.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
I can't fake it. I'm the worst liar well, I don't lie.
Me neither. I try not to.
I just can't, and I come across
I'm that guy. Let me just put it all out there. I don't even want to fake it. Like, it's just easier to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
And I have found out a long time ago the people who can't hang with that are just not my people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
don't take this the wrong way, but that comes with age. With age. You know, when you're in your teens and in your 20s, like, you're searching for your tribe, you're searching for your people, and you think it's the Protestants, and you think it's, you know, these ballet dancers or whomever. You think it's these people in college, and you keep finding out more and more and more who you are as you're unlearning things that because you spend your first half of life learning, spend the second half unlearning these things, and so therefore you find these people that end up being what you just described as, like, man, if you can't hang at this transparent level, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean,
it's just foreplay. It's not even real.
Well, and for me, I'd rather be alone because I'm an introvert.
Are you?
Oh, heck yeah.
Wow. I call myself an antisocial extrovert.
An antisocial extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard for me to go out and go. It's hard for me. It's so hard. But I feel like I have to believe it's like practice.
Well, also, again, it's just where do you get your energy?
Where do you get your energy?
Internally. I mean, that's why meditation is so easy for me. For
Really?
someone who's an extrovert, sitting by themselves and listening to their ego thoughts.
Does that charge your battery?
Yeah.
I see.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say feed off people like a vampire. That's negative. But I do like being, like, this right here charges my battery.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, it does me too, because it's the topic. It's the, it's just my gig.
So what have you done, talking about your Thanksgiving break? I want to close that loop respectfully.
Yes.
Like, what have you done to better yourself? Has your diet changed? Has your sleep regimen changed? Have you tried to subtract anxieties and stresses, needless things?
Yes. So, I mean, honestly, if you look what I've done, it's not a huge difference from what I was doing before the Thanksgiving break. I would say the biggest thing is the medication and really understanding that I need it and that there's
what is it doing?
I'll tell you. So I just have to put this out there. There is absolutely no reason to be ashamed of any kind of mental illness, period. That's just bullshit. Second of all, if you need medication, take it. Like, there was still a little bit of not shame, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm not perfect. Well, yeah, who in the world is perfect? Who has the perfect physical?
Beyonce?
Me? I don't know. She might need to take supplements.
I want to know.
I don't know.
Just how much of a wreck she is.
Right.
She has to. She has to be coping
So,
with something.
one of the biggest things that I did was I went and got a food allergy test done. It didn't show me anything that I didn't already know, but I'm sensitive. I have a food sensitivity to dairy and to eggs. Okay, so don't eat a ton of that, right? The other thing was, which was really, really cool, was I got my neurotransmitter levels tested, and that was who I interviewed, Pam Makamel-Helmley.
I need to do that.
It was freaking awesome. And even though I took that to my psychiatrist, he said, well, I don't know if that's really that accurate. I don't really care. I just went with the information anyway. So I got tested before I got on medication. My norepinephrine.
Which you should.
Yeah.
You totally should.
Most people don't, though.
Most people don't.
Right. But I tested my norepinephrine and epinephrine levels, and I tested, well, all of them. Those were out of whack, off the chart, bad. Serotonin, I mean, completely depleted of serotonin. So no wonder
Really?
I felt like crap. Okay.
What? Okay, can you tell my listeners? And I get dopamine and serotonin confused. What is serotonin?
They're very different.
I bet. I didn't go to college. Golly.
Oh, serotonin. Well, dopamine is the happy drug.
Is that good?
When you eat chocolate and you go, that feels
dopamine
good.
good?
Yeah, sure. It keeps you motivated.
Because you know what millennials are doing now? Going on dopamine cleanses, dopamine detoxes.
Well, I don't know about
What do you think about all that?
I don't. I'll have to stay with what I was sharing first.
Okay, and serotonin?
Serotonin, all I know is that when your serotonin is low, critically low like mine was, you're going to feel anxious, period. So you take the food that you eat, your body basically turns that into serotonin. Okay, serotonin is living between the synapses in your brain and in your gut. There's more serotonin in your gut than there is your brain. I'm not explaining this very well.
Oh.
But anyway, what happens from what I understand are these little synapses, right? So you've got the serotonin that's hanging out between the synapses. Mm-hmm. And if there's not enough available, you can feel like what I was feeling like. So with the serotonin reuptake inhibitor, I feel like I'm doing a really bad job explaining this.
That's okay.
It will block it from being absorbed so that there is more serotonin in the synapses.
I see.
So it's just it's all biochemistry.
For sure. It's all
and it's genetics.
Neural as well, right?
Yes, and it's genetics. So my particular body does not handle serotonin very well. It just so that's what causes the anxiety is a symptom.
Wow.
So if we look at it that way, it's not a character flaw.
It's not a character flaw.
And I'm not a scared person. I really am not. I'm pretty like whatever.
Yeah.
All is well. I mean, I don't shy away from whatever.
I can tell.
But I had a tremendous amount of anxiety. So there's a difference. It was a physiological experience that I was having.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's not one of the most popularized in media and characterized anxieties out there. Like almost an onset, and instead it activated. Usually, I think the ones that are glorified in media, which is my background, are like the post-traumatic stresses and things like that,
So PTSD.
PTSD and like childhood trauma and like all that Law and Order SVU stuff of like that's anxiety. Like people look at it that way, But there's more. I don't want to say passive, but there's just more seemingly invisible, unarticulated, nebulous forms of anxiety that sort of just, like you said, are genetic, that activate and come out of nowhere. And I would have never, like I said, it's invisible. I would have never known where it came from, but I would have assumed the latter. I would have assumed, something happened, not so much that
Everyone
it's
thought
in your
that,
DNA.
What happened to you? Nothing happened to me.
Yeah, I believe that.
I didn't take anything. I was very healthy.
Of course.
It just went, right?
It happens, it happens with depression as well, where, one day it's like, oh, I can't get out of bed. I don't know why. And then
Yeah.
you lose 6 months and you're like, what happened? Just like
And
you.
sometimes, you know, honestly, when depression and anxiety show up, sometimes it is a physical ailment. And I'm not even talking about neurotransmitters, right? Because something may be really off. So that's why, you know, if something feels off, go to the doctor and get a physical.
Yeah.
It may be
this
something
is,
else.
This is like, I need to emphasize this with men, especially.
Yes, with men especially.
Because we don't, it's just not, it's just like, be a man. That's our diagnosis.
My husband used to be that way.
Drink some 7-Up, put some Vicks on it.
Yeah. So my husband used to be that way until I was begging him the night that I went to the hospital to take me to the hospital, and he wouldn't do it.
Wow.
So I called my mom, who drove all the way from Wimberley, 45 minutes, to pick me up and take me to the hospital. And she was like, what the heck? Well, first of all, I think he was in denial. Second of all, he had a bunch of anxiety that he wasn't looking at.
Of course.
And when I started going through this whole process, he's like, wait a second, I'm a little OCD. I have a lot of social anxiety. He started treating it. And I swear it's like living with a different, not completely a different person, but it's a hell of a lot more fun than it used to be.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because I'll be like, hey, let's go to this party, and he'll actually go with me instead of...
did he get some work done?
He did the same stuff that I did. So he got his neurotransmitters tested, kind of similar to mine, not nearly as bad.
How do they test that?
Is
it like a cotton swab?
I did so many tests at this point, and I was so sleep deprived. I think it was
But this isn't something...
peeing.
Oh, peeing.
And then also they can check your
Toxology.
cortisol. Well...
I don't know.
I don't know.
I tried to use a big word.
I don't know. I'm like... And then the other one is the cortisol test, which is your stress hormone, right? And they did that through your saliva.
I'm gonna try to do it.
Extricatory.
I need to do it. I just feel like I'd let the data do the talking.
Well, if you listen to my podcast, episodes 3 and 4, you get a discount because they give the code.
Nice.
And then you get to learn about what the heck you're...
And tell me again the name of your podcast.
Your Truth Revealed.
And how can I find it?
Anywhere.
Where are they?
Spotify, Apple iTunes, on YouTube right now, but it's under my name.
It's on all the things.
Erika Marcoux. It's everywhere.
Man, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for coming out here and doing this podcast. This was a crazy one.
Was it a crazy one?
I thought it was crazy. Yeah. I thought it was a total crazy one.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that we were able to do this. And if there's anything I can do for you, you know, to help you with your show, or if you know, I'd love to like
maybe collaborate on
something. Or put like, you know, help you out with the guest, because you know I'm in the military scene, and so I meet all kinds of neurodiverse people that come from all different places, and maybe someone can relate to you, and you know, if it could help for the book, you know, that'd be awesome. What's the book going to be called?
I don't know yet.
You're still thinking about it?
It might just be Your Truth Revealed.
Oh. I like it. It's writing itself.
Yeah, I think it is writing itself.
Well, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Erika, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, I so appreciate it. I've loved it.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right.